Welcome back, everyone. You're probably here because you have some interest in opening a residential assisted living facility. My name's Roman. I actually own, operate, and also coach and mentor others on how to open their own assisted living facility. I don't want to take up too much of your time. You probably read the title, but we're here to talk about, can you actually make $15,000 a month opening, running your own residential assisted living facility? Particularly, we're talking about residential assisted living facilities for the elderly. The quick answer is yes, you actually can. You can make up to $15,000 a month. Actually, you can make more than $15,000 a month. I'll give you a quick breakdown of my experience, my care homes, and how we have done over $20,000 a month, but typically we're averaging around $15,000 a month per care home in profit. So currently I have 2 care homes that are fully active, been running for a while, and I have 1 new care home. We'll put that one aside because we're still working on getting residents, so the numbers don't look too good. It's actually getting its way to break even, but it's not profiting because I only have 1 resident at the moment, but soon it will be active. After that second to third resident, I will start seeing break even and then profits. My 2 established care homes have an average expense of $25,000 to $30,000 a month. Why it varies about how many employees I have. I always have 2 caregivers in the day, 1 at night, but sometimes when I have a higher care resident, I might bring on a 3rd caregiver who's gonna work a part-time shift or maybe even a full-time shift. So that's why you see that variation in cost. All the other costs are made up of our mortgage, our supplies, our day-to-day expenses, utilities, all that good stuff. We'll probably break that down in a different video, but right now the average monthly cost to operate is $25,000 to $30,000 a month. All right, just to keep things very simple, my average rate at my care homes is about $8,000 a month. When I say to keep it simple, my average rates, I have seen up to $12,000 a month resident. I have some residents that are $10,000 a month and some that might be slightly lower, but I do see an average about $8,000 at my Brentwood home, and at my Sunnyvale care home, I see about an average of $9,000 a month per resident. Just for easy math, we'll do $8,000 a month, and that equals $48,000 a month in revenue. When we do the quick math, $48,000 minus our $30,000 a month, we're making $18,000 a month in profit. I actually had a time, and unfortunately this resident passed away, but I had a time where I had a resident who was paying $12,000 a month, where we were doing about $51,000 a month in revenue, which was putting us over $20,000 a month in profit. So when we go back to the answer for this video, you definitely can do over $15,000. You can do up to maybe $20,000, maybe even $25,000 a month if you have extremely high paying residents. But just to simplify it, high paying residents usually mean high care residents. So they will need more effort of care. All right, now the big question, you guys are probably a little bit angry, a little bit upset, like $8,000, that's crazy. You know, this guy's overcharging, and I actually am not. I'm gonna justify it, but $8,000 a month is a very realistic number that you could be charging for your care home. You'll see some care homes that charge less, and I'll explain that later in the video, but you could be easily charging $8,000 a month. The biggest thing I wanna say is when we say we charge $8,000 a month per resident, and I think that those rates aren't out of this world and it's very normal, when we look at the average cost of care, if somebody stayed at home and they needed in-home care, so they had a caregiver come into their home, taking care of them, the average rate for a licensed in-home caregiver is anywhere from $40 an hour up to $60 an hour. Again, the rates change based on someone's care. When we look at $40 an hour and we look at somebody who's getting care for just 8 hours a day, we're looking over almost about $10,000 a month that they'll be paying for someone to come to their home, care for them for about 8 hours a day. We have 24 hours in a day, so that's only just a little piece of their day. At our care home, they get 24 hours care, they get food, they get activities, they get a place to stay. They're not paying rent, mortgage, none of that stuff anymore. So we are actually extremely cheap compared to what it would be for someone to get care at their own home. And there's only 2 options, right? You get care at your home or you come to some kind of assisted living facility to get good care, because all of our residents are with us for some type of care. They need some assistance with their daily activities. They have some kind of medical care that they need attended to. So now let's talk about these $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 care. Maybe you came across my video because you did some due diligence. You might have even gone and toured some care homes, and you see me, a guy, saying that you could charge $8,000 a month, but you hear people charging $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month. That's true, that happens. Even in my areas where I charge $8,000 or even up to $12,000 a month, I have other care homes that charge $4,000 or $6,000 or $5,000 a month per resident. The biggest difference, and the easy example, it's like going to a 1-star hotel, right? Going to a Motel 6 or going to a 5-star all-inclusive resort. When you come to an $8,000 care home, it's a 5-star all-inclusive. Everything's included. There's no add-on cost. We have around-the-clock care. I have 2 caregivers in the day, 1 caregiver at night. That sounds like, okay, maybe that's not even that much. Most care homes have only 1 caregiver in the day and nobody at night. That's crazy to take care of 6 residents. I mean, when I say most care homes, the cheaper care homes, because when you charge a lower rate, it's really hard to justify costs, right? It's really hard to make a profit. And if you're doing all this work and you're not making a profit, you're not gonna do it, right? You're not gonna open a care home. So these care homes that charge really cheap rates have to cut down on their expenses. And the biggest expense is caregivers, right? Your payroll. So when you're charging $4,000 or $5,000 a month, you're not bringing in that much money, so you have to somehow break even, make profit. You have a mortgage, you have utilities, you have your payroll, so you start cutting costs at your caregivers. And I think that's the worst thing to do. My biggest thing when I got into this industry was we don't cut corners, right? We have people's lives we're caring for. And I think the way that you do that is you provide the best care, but you have to charge the right rate. If you don't charge the right rate, there's no way you can go above and beyond. You can't go and get outside food and celebrate holidays, get extra staffing when you need. You have to be really penny pinching, and that's where people start cutting corners on the care, being involved, because they don't see a business that makes $15,000 a month. They see a business that barely breaks even or makes just $3,000, $4,000 a month, and it's a lot of work. So now I wanted to give some tips on how you can charge $8,000 a month compared to the other care homes in your area that charge $4,000 or $5,000. One thing, just to be honest, location does matter. If you're in an area where average rates are really, really low, you can't be a huge outlier. So I will say, what I've noticed is locations where housing is more expensive, the rates for care is more expensive. A great example is in my Brentwood care home. Brentwood is a city surrounded by other cities that aren't as expensive. For example, in Brentwood, an average home costs anywhere from $600 to $1 million. In Sunnyvale, where I have my other care home, our average cost is like $2 million for a home. So when we look at that, my Brentwood care home, I get a lot of residents that come to me looking for low rates, $5,000, $6,000. But when I look at my Sunnyvale care home, everybody's $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. Like everybody knows that's the cost of care. So when you look at location, there is a cap, right? And you will see a difficulty of like, I can be in a little bit of outlier, I could charge more, or you can go to some areas where you know the rates are always gonna be high. So one of the biggest things you wanna focus on is what location. You can't open up in an area where cost of living is low, people's income is low, and expect high rates. So location will be a big variable. And then, beyond the location, you do have to look at neighborhoods. Good neighborhoods do make a difference. If I'm in a city where there's a little bad pocket, you're not gonna get as high of a demand, which will be as high of a rate. So being in a good neighborhood is important. Being in a good city is important. Location is gonna be one of your biggest factors. And then the next thing is gonna come out to your home's environment. When you see this astronomical big number, $8,000 a month, $9,000 a month, those are a lot of people. Even when I first got into this industry, I was like, nobody will pay that rate. And that's what a lot of us think, when you're first getting into this industry. But when you see the loved ones, if you've ever been in a situation where your grandparents or your parents needed care, you understand the cost of care, and it becomes a very reasonable price. So don't have that limiting belief that, this isn't possible. It is very possible to charge $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month per resident. When you're looking on the outside, it sounds crazy, but that is truly the cost of care. Just like I explained earlier in this video, just to get your own caregiver at your own home for 8 hours is gonna be about $10,000 a month. So we're actually the deal. We're actually the good price when it comes to choosing where to put your loved one when they're in a situation. And a lot of families understand that when they're in that situation. So don't let that price being a factor that's gonna, hold you back from saying I could charge more. So the thing is, people are willing to pay the right price for the right care, and what that comes from is care, but also your environment. When you look at any of my homes, maybe you see me on Instagram, maybe you've seen some of my homes, or if you've just seen some of the nice care homes, we have an Airbnb-like feel, right? Some care homes you go into, they have mismatched furniture, they buy my Goodwill, they get discount furniture. We go with really bright whites and art on the wall, and we try to have a designer come in and actually design the facility. Every room looks a little bit different. Everybody has like a different feel when they walk into their room. Our bathrooms have little trinkets around. So, creating a good environment makes a big difference. So it stems from the first initial look when someone walks into your home. Then it comes to the type of tours you give, the type of care you provide, how many caregivers you have. Do you have an awake night staff? It's not a licensing requirement, especially here in California, to have awake night staff. So a lot of people don't do that. A lot of care homes don't do that. But having that awake night staff is going above and beyond to provide right care. So that's a really important factor that I'm a big believer in, is go and spend the extra money to have a third caregiver, and you will be able to pass that cost forward to families who are looking for good care. Beyond those smaller items like the looks and the feels, it really comes down to your systems, how you care for residents. Do you do activity? Do you celebrate holidays? Do you celebrate birthdays? Do you have that A+ factor, that 5-star factor? Like when you ever go to those really fancy all-inclusive resorts, they always have those little extras you get that make it worthwhile, that you say, I would love to come back and stay here. I don't ever want to go stay at a small motel or a cheaper hotel. That's the factor you need to provide in your home. All right, you guys, I hope this video gave some idea of the possibilities of opening your first care home, what you can actually charge, how much you can make. I do have a couple resources. If you want to connect with me, there'll be a link in my bio. I do coaching. I try to answer anybody's email or questions that come to me, but to be honest, I get quite a few of them, so I might not get back to you. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram. I'm always going live and hoping to make a couple more videos, so I will be back on YouTube. See you in the next one.